Alright, how's it going, folks? Wits FL here to talk to you about Wargaming. I have Thundered Ace in the party, and we are going to talk about Wargaming as a company, and in particular, an interaction I had with them that really just displays how they feel about your feedback and how they feel about you as a player of their game. So, how this started was today I left feedback in the feedback channel on the official Discord, basically saying, hey, it'd be nice if we could get a rock, paper, scissors game mode. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean the original three classes of ships, the destroyers, cruisers, and battleships, because one counters the other. Everything has a counter in that. And fundamentally, as a class, I share the opinion with a lot of people that carriers can never be balanced on the basis of they get to damage you without ever having to put their ship at risk, and having their plane shut down is just not the same. In any case, I had asked, or I requested that they put in that game mode, and added as a permanent game mode alongside standard battles. I got a response from Miss Chick, who basically, she said exactly, there's no plans to implement that in the future, or it's very unlikely we will implement that in the future. So I get into a debate with her and with a few of the other moderators on Discord who are not directly Wargaming employees, but they are moderators and they talk to Wargaming, and they obviously have certain things that they enforce with Wargaming. So I'll preface it by saying that, but it definitely tells you what they believe as a company. So I get into it and I basically say, well, what's the harm here? There's two outcomes to how this goes. In one scenario, the game mode that I suggested, rock, paper, scissors, becomes incredibly unpopular, or, just is a niche game mode that a few people play, and you've made people happy who don't like carriers, who don't want to have to run an AA monster to have a good time if the carrier decides to focus you, or two, the game mode becomes incredibly popular, as I believe it would be. I would say probably 30 to 40% of the player base, if not more, would play it with some consistency, if not make it a main game mode for them. And I would bet it's probably a higher number than that, to be honest with you. But they, from that point, basically, I give them those two options. And the second option, if it does become popular, that tells you, hey, people don't like this class that we implemented into this game. People don't want to play against it. And in particular, our oldest players don't want to play against them. Maybe there's a problem with implementing these ships into the game. And maybe we should take a different direction than expanding that class of ships. So you have, either way, you're going to have a win for the player base. And it's not removing carriers altogether. You can still play them if you want to. In response to that, again, this is over the course of several messages. Wargaming, their moderators in Discord, basically say, well, that would hurt the game because it would take players out of matchmaking, or it would split the player base by taking them out of matchmaking, which to me makes absolutely no sense at all. That's like saying Call of Duty Zombie Mode or Call of Duty, the multiplayer modes. There's like 50 multiplayer modes. Giving people more choice is going to hurt the player base, and it's going to give them less players, which I don't understand for the life of me how that would make sense at all. Choice is always a good thing. They went into it, they somehow brought up rewards, which makes no sense because, they say you have freedom of choice doesn't equal freedom of rewards, was a line they like to throw out a few times, which maybe you understand this, Ace, better than I do, but I take that they basically say, you can't, with ranked, for example, you get some kind of currency if you play this game, but you're not going to count towards the campaign, which is, to me, completely unrelated from anything I said. As far as I'm concerned, make it the exact same currency that you get in standard battles. Or, hell, honestly, I would play that game mode if you made it so we just broke broke even, you know? I would play that more than standard battles. Does that make any sense to you at all? That comment? I didn't understand it, Ace. Yeah. So, yeah, I just couldn't understand how that became a point or how that makes sense. And I told them that, but, they kept bringing it up, which, again, made no sense to me. So moving forward into this debate, it kind of went back and forth a little bit, and it got to a point where I was like, well, listen, we functioned as a game for 2+ years without carriers, right? And a lot of us preferred the game before carriers. And there still are those of us who do. I mean, to me, I can't think of any matches where I'm like, yes, carrier match, unless I'm like in an AA ship just trying to make their life hell, for running that class. I never have a better time with carriers. I would rather there be another battleship or another cruiser to shoot, or even another destroyer, honestly. But I never have a good time, a better time, I should say, when there's a carrier in the match than I would have otherwise. So I basically say, well, listen, it's going to go one of those two ways. Either way, your player base is going to be happier, no matter which way it goes. And in particular, even if the game mode does not become popular, because it's not hard to implement, you're going to keep your oldest players happy, who tend to be the highest spenders. Those of us who started the game, a couple of years ago, or even back at launch 2019, have more often than not, if we're still playing this game, spent way more than any other player to date. I have spent more money on this game than I have with any other game, which is its own problem, because Wargaming is, they're greedy. There's no way around that. The auction is perfect proof of that. It's not completely pay to win, but there's a large benefit to pay to win in this game. And a single ship, a tier 6 premium, something like $40 US, which, if you don't know, or if I've got a lot of viewers in Europe, that is the cost of another AAA title in some cases. Another AAA video game is like $60 on average, and you're talking about that for a single ship in this game. So it's an expensive game to play, and I've probably spent myself, somewhere between $500 and $1,000. I'd say probably near 800 plus. And I'm not even one of the highest spenders in this game. But to spend that on a single game is absolutely insane. That's 10 plus games that I could have bought with that money. And I've supported them, even though I know they're not the best business practice-wise. And I've continued to support them. And there are many players like me. If you're doing nothing else, you're keeping us satisfied. We liked the game in a previous state. And there are some people who want the carriers removed. If you want to play carriers, you still can. That's why I suggested this. It's a compromise, right? Well, in response to this, they said, I have the screenshot exactly somewhere. The essence of it was that, so Jai Fo, I don't know who the hell that is, some senior contributor or manager of the Discord, goes, you don't know anything about free-to-play games, do you? Which is already condescending as fuck on its own. But following that, they said, somewhere in here, I have screenshots of most all of it. Some of it was edited on their part, and some of it was edited on my part just to correct typos. So they say, loyalty means little to free-to-play games. Churn and enjoyment is the business model, basically like a kid's Happy Meal. In other words, fuck your feedback. Fuck you if you've been spending on this game since day one. We want new players, and we're going to do everything we can to keep the new players happy. Which is very telling, I think, of Wargaming's business practice and business conscious. If you are running a business, there's a reason that the old adage of customer comes first Ace, would you mind posting this link into the Discord? Reese asked. Sure. I'll do it. So I think it's very telling of, what their mindset is about who you are to them, what your feedback means if it gets in the way of their profits, even if it is to better the game. Which, again, guys, I don't like carriers, but if you want to play them, that's completely fine, which is why I'm not asking for their complete removal. I'm not saying torch the carriers. I'm just saying give people an option, And they have completely shut it down because they think it will affect matchmaking, which it's quite possible it would. I think a good majority of the player base doesn't want to play against them on average. But, for those of us who do, for those of the player base who do, you can still play against them, But again, it's kind of like one of those things where, like I said, it's one of two paths. Either path is going to lead you to a better and happier player base and a better and happier game. The only people who are going to be upset are the people who, want to continue to be able to bully people without repercussion, right? Like ships like Saipan, it's broken from the sense that it has the ability to permaflood you constantly without having any damage done to itself, It's a definitely very frustrating ship to play against, and to be honest, it doesn't matter what you're in. If the Saipan wants you dead, you will be dead. There's nothing you can do about it. You can be an AA Mino, AA Worcester. I think the only ship that has a legitimate chance is AA Mino. That one can put up a fight because of the super heals, the smokescreen, and the AA. But, we're talking about buffing, making the most powerful ships in the game even more meta when they don't need to be. Minotaur is already probably still the best ship at Legendary tier. It's one of those ships that doesn't need the extra help. When you're talking about ships like Bismarck, when you're talking about ships like some of the French destroyers, they're already not popular ships. And the more and more stuff you throw at them, the more disadvantages you throw at them by the air, the less strong they become. And they're already struggling as it is. What are your thoughts on Wargaming and what they've said? I know Peak is also in trouble with them right now for selling one of their ships that they gave them at auction because it made them look bad. Made them look like money-hungry grubbers, Okay. All right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. They for sure have shoddy business practices, no question about it. We all know this. And we all know that this game, is very expensive. It's $40 for one of those damn Azure Lane waifu commanders, as some people like to call them, the hentai commanders, who are literally just broken commanders in most cases. But for them to basically say, hey, I know you've been supporting us since the beginning, but listen, that doesn't fit our business model. We're churn and burn. That's how free-to-play works, So your feedback means nothing. And I think that they know that the feedback that I left is popular. And in fact, I proved it to them, because they were saying, oh, nobody requests that. Well, there was another part of this argument, or the discussion, rather, because I don't want to make it sound like an argument, where they said, well, you can play ranked if you don't want to play carriers. And I'm like, okay, so make that permanent for all I care. It's an improvement, And they're like, well, that would split matchmaking, and we don't want to do that. And I'm like, okay, so why is it up anyway then? Why do you have it if it splits matchmaking? That's a big problem for the game. And they're like, well, it's to appease the 15% of players who want to, be competitive in this game. They mentioned 15%. I'm like, okay, let me go back to the feedback channel. I go to the feedback channel, and I prove to them that, in the last, before even having to load the page up further, there was like 2 or 3 different requests. And I go from my request all the way up to the next one that requests the carrier. I count out the number of total requests, or total feedback messages there are, versus the total number that, there are requesting a standalone rock, paper, scissors mode, because it's a very popular request. And it was like 15.33%. And I'm like, okay, here's 15%. And these are just people who are requesting it, not the number of people who's actually going to play it if they actually see it's a thing. And again, it's basically the mentality is pound sand. We need new players. We need new money from selling new ships from like aircraft carriers. And they don't want to start the firestorm they think it would be, But it's very frustrating to see a company with that much arrogance and be able to ignore the player feedback. And I think they responded something, and I'm like, oh, good to hear from you, Lucasfilm, because they're essentially doing the same. They're pulling the same trick that Star Wars is pulling. Fuck you, we're Star Wars. Your feedback means nothing. And in this case, it's fuck you, or Wargaming. Your feedback means nothing. It's very frustrating. A lot of us don't like Wargaming as a company. And it's very frustrating that there is no real competition to this game. I agree with you, Ace. I think that if there was an alternative, it would become very popular. I think the best naval combat game that ever was Battle Stations Pacific. I think that was the perfect game, And I wish that company still existed. I wish they could still churn out another one. I thought it was fantastic, and there's so many improvements they could have made to that game had it still existed. And if somebody comes around and brings that back, or brings something new to the table that's not Wargaming, I think that a lot of us would be happy to go there. If not for balance reasons, just for the reasons of, hey, we don't like Wargaming, I don't know how many people actually do like Wargaming as a company. But that's essentially my thoughts here. And I think that it's getting to a point now, especially, where their greed becomes more and more apparent, and their arrogance becomes more and more apparent with things like the auction, with things like the constant microtransactions, with things like the broken commanders, the broken ships, like Weimar. That ship is so busted, and rather than actually fix the problems and grow some balls, they just move the problem up a tier. But they know that, what they essentially did was they sold Warzone Aimbot for $40 and then took the Warzone Aimbot sale away. And they're like, well, we're not going to fix the aimbot, but we will introduce this little kinda fix where sometimes you get caught and you lose. Sometimes the aimbot doesn't work, but it's still going to be aimbot, you know? And it's business practices like that. It's business practices like completely ignoring player feedback in the case for, or rather, older player feedback, your best customers at that feedback for, you know, that doesn't fit our business model. We don't care about return customers. We just want more new customers. It's very frustrating. Anything else to add, Ace? Any other thoughts?
I mean, you're hitting a lot of the nails on the head, as we've already talked about. And I guess it with some of the practices, like not just business practices, but for as us who play World of Warships Legends, and honestly anyone who plays a wargaming title, you know, the whole debate here is carriers. This is the same kind of arguments that people had for anyone who's played World of Tanks, artillery, which was pretty much their version of carriers. They could really give you a world of hurt, and pretty much be untouchable. And they had to go through a bunch of trial and actually I use this loosely, trial and error, to try and appease or at least show an appearance of trying to fix the problem, but doesn't. And now we're seeing that fester on a game that, you know, I think everyone hoped that there wouldn't be carriers. Now, again, I am not someone who is advocating to get rid of carriers. They are a part of naval warfare, and I'm someone who's grinding the Wester right now. I play it every now and then, and I have some fun with it. But the Wester is its own carrier that does need a little bit of skill. Some of them do, but as someone who plays a little bit of carrier, and like I said, I'm a Wester player, is there people with more experience that probably could make the arguments better than me? Oh, definitely. But I'm going to use it for a reference, because the main problem that players have, I guess, if we dive a little bit into issues of what players are like, okay, well, why do they hate carriers? Besides, you know, we could be Captain Obvious. I could be Captain Obvious here. Well, very little counterplay. Most ships, if they want you dead, they will hunt you down to the ends of the earth. And if they're smart carrier players, again, if you're out and alone, you're gonna get torched for it. I think hell, yesterday I think I was playing the Wester and I tortured a Bayern, and he had barely any AA protection. And it's like, I should not be able to do this. But that's just for the German carrier. The one that everyone I think has a lot of problems with is the Russian carriers, and as a aircraft carrier player as well, I hate them. That one, if nothing else, needs a nerf, heavy nerf. I know everyone can say about all aircraft carriers. That one, those ones,
especially destroyers.
Now,
and
the thing with that is what separates the Russian carriers that make them honestly way above all the other carriers, whether you play, you know, German, British, American, whatever, or Japanese. They are their own breed all by themselves, because they have the squadrons that drop not only skip bombers, which are honestly kind of busted as is, especially against any type of ship. Exactly. Yeah, those are broken, and then they have the torpedo squadron that drop, you know, all their torpedoes at once. Sure, you'll shoot down one or two while they get away, but as a carrier, it's like you see that, and all the carriers get fighter squadrons. But you drop them. You know, it promotes team play. You know, oh hey, the enemy carrier's attacking my teammates. I'll drop a fighter squadron to take down some of their fighters before they have another chance. Well, you can't do that with the Russian carriers. They launch all their stuff and then they quickly dissipate to the air, and your fighter squadrons, either because the fighter squadrons are just so shit, or they can't go after them just because of the mechanics in the game. They use their things. They can't be targeted even though AA can target them. So it's just a bunch of bullshit with how they've modeled the carriers. Like that one sent everything over the edge. You could make an argument for both sides, thinking, okay, carriers aren't that busted. Then you put ships in like Saipan and the Russian fake carriers, and wonder why people are pissed off. And then also going back to what you said about the Weimar, you know, and how people they want reoccurring customers. Take Belfast is the perfect example of this. We had the Belfast campaign for the tier 6 Belfast. I mean OG Belfast, for anyone asking. Apparently people liked it so much and how busted ships like that were, that they've decided, because why not? Let's put the Belfast 43 like they did in PC with torpedoes and
150s.
worse
right. It's exactly
stuff for tier 7. And when tier 8s are about to come in, and you move the Weimar, which is already busted to a tier that it more deserves, and pretty much makes a ship like Belfast 43 obsolete. It makes it completely outmatched against ships that was it the Weimar has 12 150s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they have because they've got the same guns as the Nuremberg and Königsberg. So versus 12 152s, which isn't much of a difference, but I think with way less of a fire rate and just in general shitty torpedoes and just a ship that belongs in tier 6 at tier 7. And then tier 8s are going to come out, and it's just going to make it even more obsolete. But they sold it because people liked Belfast, and to campaign to those who didn't get it, because we wanted Belfast. Oh, well, here's Belfast and a shittier version of it, all for that sweet revenue. But don't tell them Weimar's going up to another tier. That to get completely bullied.
I think that.
I mean, let's look at all the other cruisers.
Yeah, the Belfast. I was going to say, I don't think the Weimar is going to have any problems,
like
but that's the
Cleveland,
problem.
The Edinburgh,
you're taking the problem
that are actually
and moving it
more
up
for
a tier
tier 7.
because they know what they did. They took cheat codes and they sold it for $40. If Call of Duty ever did that, there would be hell to pay for Activision. But they'd have a record-breaking sale
those ships.
And that's exactly what Wargaming did. They took a ship they knew was busted. They knew was going to be busted. Put it up for sale for $40. Let the contributors, review it, get all the publicity, let people get spammed by it for a month or two, and then have everyone buy it, and then they're like, oh, cheat codes are going away, get it now. You got 2 weeks. And they keep doing this because it's what sells. But it's horrible for the game. Ships like this are horrible for the game, and they never fix them. Ships like this, the Jean Bart, the Ochakov, Udachi, Shimakaze too, but that's at least not anyone can get that for free, if nothing else. But it's frustrating. Now, you were talking about the Russian carriers and the torpedoes. Granted, the torpedoes on those are slow. However, they have such a alpha strike. You're gonna either get nailed. If you do nothing, you're gonna get nailed by 15 torpedoes. The argument is just dodge, right? If you just dodge, you are going to put yourself in a position. It's pick your dev strike, basically. You're either going to get nailed for 20k and a couple of floods by a carrier, or you're going to go flat broadside to something you don't want to, trying to avoid that, and then get nuked that way. One way or another, there's not a carrier. It's a turn, pray nobody sees you turn, and then, move on with your day. But one way or another, there's no real smart counter to that, If the enemy team is smart, there's no smart counter to that. It's pick your poison, But the main problem at this point, I think, is definitely Saipan. And I think the main problem, the main grievance I have with Wargaming is just that they are completely. It's good feedback.
You're gonna lose health.
I don't think there's anyone here who can honestly say they don't see the difference between a carrier and any other class in this game. And I don't think there's anyone here who can say that there's not a positive in introducing more choice for your players. It's not going to hurt the game. It'll probably help the game, by keeping players longer, by giving them something that they want. They want to tell you that it's something nobody wants, but we all know that people want this. A large majority of the player base would play this. But that's just kind of what I have to say about Wargaming and their practices. And I think it's just getting worse. Day by day, it's getting worse. Let me see what I've missed in chat here. In football. Go ahead. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So, just quick thing. Swick was wanting an invite. I'm just asking for permission first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. While you're looking at that, I'll throw in like one more 2 cents. And it all goes back to what I talked about. With my first bit of argument of with no competition, because you brought up the whole Call of Duty analogy. But think about it. Call of Duty's. What's up, Swick? But think about like what's Call of Duty's. Call of Duty has competition though.
Yeah.
Wargaming doesn't. Call of Duty, has Battlefield. Whether or not they're cannibalizing each other, whatever, that's still competition. Whether or not they are truly greedy fucks, that doesn't matter because they have competition that they have to be better than. And it, at least, if nothing else, shows an appearance of, we're trying to be better than our competition in more ways than one. Where Wargaming, until something comes along, which probably won't happen because they pretty much have a monopoly on this market. But nothing's going to change, unless people start really leaving in droves, or their rating of like E for or I don't know. Like I said, I don't think it's E for everyone. It may be T, but whatever their ratings are, they make sure they go
and
up
they
to
don't
what
make
it
the
should
game
be
better.
Suitable for the fact that you have a gambling / microtransaction. So people could argue, free-to-play game, that's a business model. The business model is to make people pay for, stuff like, okay. But again, then why are you making it free-to-play if when Call of Duty and all them do the same thing, they have
you got
things
maps
for
too.
Aesthetics. They have back in the day they used to sell guns. They used to sell. Black Ops 2 had the Peacekeeper for anyone who remembers that, and that gun was busted. But it wasn't. Yeah, it was. It was busted. It was busted. But you didn't see. But it was still a great game, and anyone could get it for what was it? I think $15 per DLC. And they put out DLCs. You got the maps. Yeah, you got new maps for multiplayer and zombies. And as someone who played a lot of Black Ops 2 back in the day, it was fun. And honestly, I wasn't mad that the Peacekeeper was used. It was still, again, I used other guns, and you just got better with it. But it just with no competition to, I guess checks and balances against Wargaming and make them look bad. And if there was competition, they'd be like, hey, well, look at these guys. If our game might be completely shit, but we don't do that shit. We don't tell our veteran players and our players to piss off. Well, again, even an appearance of, hey, of at least being polite and at least saying, hey, okay, we appreciate the feedback.
So
we'll think about it. Even an appearance, I get it. It still
to answer your question,
Wellens, but at least
Wellens asked, then how do you stop island
you don't know
camping?
anything
That's
about free-to-play games, do you?
So
the
thing about carriers is they were
business
introduced
model.
to
At that point, you're just
balance
intimidating customers. It's like, okay, so then you're trying to get people to just completely drive people away, and the more you keep shooting yourself in the foot, it will add up eventually, competition or not.
But the problem is, generally they're not doing that, and another problem is the ships that you're concerned about, which I get it are concerning, ships like Minotaur, Worcester, Cleveland, Weimar, those ships that are the island spammers, the chief island spammers, generally have the best AA in the game. So like Minotaur here, this is one of the greatest island spammers in the game. It's also a smokescreen spammer, but people island spam too. This thing has a 100 AA rating. It does something like 500 damage per second, reaching out to 7.2 kilometers. Worcester, same deal. You're not going to get close to that. And that's the best. Those are the two best plane killers in the game. And that tends to be the, I guess theme, is the island spammers are the plane killers. So they're not balancing those. But the other thing is, island spam, I have a pretty good understanding of it, and I at least have a theory on how to counter it. One, drop spot. Figure out how you can drop spot. Whether it's by stopping shooting, damage conning, increasing the distance, getting behind an island. Find out what's spotting you and kill it, if at all possible. The only scenario where you're truly screwed against an island spammer is when you're open water, you have no cover, there's a destroyer spotting you, you're in a battleship, and there's an island spammer that's like 15 kilometers away from you that you can't get close to. There's nothing you can do there. Any other scenario, there's some way you can do something. You know, whether it's kill the thing that's spotting you, whether it's find some cover and take the engagement one-on-one, whether it's force them to come to you, whether it's play the objective and get the cap, so that way them island spamming is irrelevant, you have something, you know? But it's not the same as carriers, but I do get your point. That is another cancerous playstyle, but there are counters to that. With carriers, it's just, hey, let's hope my AA does its job, and let's hope it's not a Saipon. But it's frustrating. Minecraft was the good old days. You are correct. I think Minecraft in its peak was probably the best time gaming ever had it. And then the Call of Duty, the DLC that we're talking about, for what is it called? Warzone, and Fortnite, they sell microtransactions. That's a microtransaction company. But the microtransactions they're selling are cosmetic. You can play that game and be just as good as someone who spends thousands of dollars while you're completely free to play. You're just not going to look all, with a black Assassin's Creed hood and shit. You'll look like a bum. But you'll still be able to play the game, Yeah, exactly. This game, it's like, hey, and it's also a lot cheaper, too. This game, they milk the hell out of people. They turn you into a whale if you want to do good. Hey, you want battleships to be viable? Buy this $40 commander, Azulane Scharnhorst. Oh, you want Conqueror to be good? Buy another $40 commander, Azulane Nelson.
Still isn't determined by what you want.
If you want your cruisers to be better, buy another $40 commander. Oh, by the way, here's a $40 ship that will beat everything. Buy it now before it's too late, and we're already at $120 there. So it's a combination of things, but I think the main problem here is Wargaming's arrogance and their just flat out disrespect and attitude towards their existing players. Like, you mean nothing to them. All they want is a new player, someone they can get their $40 out of, or maybe they turn you into a whale. But if you've been here since the beginning and maybe you spent several $100s over the course of a few years, fuck you. Your feedback means nothing. Even if it's popular, right? So that's kind of my thoughts on this. And it's very frustrating. And it's definitely turned me off of Wargaming more than anything has before, I would say. It's solid feedback that harms nothing, really, except for the people who are whales who are, they want to be able to buy aimbot, essentially. They want to buy aimbot for Call of Duty for $40, only they want the Wargaming version of that. And they're catering to those people, which is not good for the game for so many reasons, but it's also not good for the player base. And I think a lot of players leave due to frustration. Or some people... I played Battle Station Pacific. There was an active community for that about a year ago. They started to get into warships with me, and they just couldn't make it through because of the bullshit that Wargaming throws at them, It's very frustrating, and those are my thoughts on this, right? That's what I have for you guys. I think that Wargaming is... We all know it's a dirty company, but it seems to be getting worse, and it's definitely turned me off of the game. I am going to be taking a bit of a step back from it. I will probably still play it. But, as far as microtransactions, I'm done. I'm not giving them another dollar. And I think I'll be playing the game less frequently than I have due to Wargaming's treatment of their, customers, really. And you're right, Reese. That we do pay those bills for them. We provide their paycheck, and they don't realize it, It's just not a good way to do business. It really isn't, and I think we all know that. Anything else from you guys? Any closing thoughts here? Ace? Hammer?
So yeah, I didn't know who was gonna step up, but I mean, I think, like I said, we've hit everything. We've hit everything from why there's issues, what said issues are, and even with the feedback you've given, like, to Wargaming, it wasn't even like a huge like thing. It was like, and we've addressed more than just that. So, in my opinion, I think we've covered a lot of the bases. I mean, I know Swicky came in here a little late. If you have any thoughts on your side, but honestly, I think we've covered all the bases, and yeah. That's kind of my remark on that.
I mean, as somebody who has played multiple wargaming titles, I mean, like World of Tanks, for instance. If anybody in the chat here, or I know me and Austin here played a lot of World of Tanks as well.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous exactly how much pay to win and shit like that really takes over in the microtransaction world, at least, especially on that game. And when this game first came out, because I know me and Austin were day ones for when it came to console.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was a breath of fresh air because the grind wasn't as strenuous. It wasn't pay to win. It was just go out and have your ship and kind of learn the mechanics and have a blast. And
no
it was
paper
fun.
ships either.
Yeah, and that was the thing. The reason it was called, like, when it came out, every single ship in the game, I believe, when it came out at the time, was real, or was or floated, or they were actually real ships. And that was the big thing for me because I'm a history guy. So, like, that... Sweet, I actually have some historical accuracy in a video game, which is kind of hard to find anymore. Like, actual accuracy. And...
Yeah.
But, like, with World of Tanks, and I know I make the joke all the time when we go up against Russian ships and Russian bias and stuff like that, but, like, judging by the feedback you've just got, because I only got half the story. I walked into the other room and I said, hey, what's going on? And that's what I know. My brother's like, he's explaining it.
Yeah, I mean, they never said go fuck yourself, and I'll say that. But
just listening to some of the stuff was like,
of course not. So again, these are the moderators,
customer service representative, from what
which
it sounds like, I'd lose my job. So
employees of Wargaming,
or at least be polite about it. From what it sounds like, they just told you to go fuck yourself.
So manage, right? They have things they're told.
That's
if
fine.
You get this, say this.
I didn't think they said that exactly.
Have a push for this, answers no, and whatnot. But it's mostly just the blatant disregard of feedback and, the insight into how Wargaming views you as a customer, right? That the mods provided. And whether or not Wargaming denies it, I think we all know that's the truth. I think that the moderator who said that quote spoke the truth. They spoke Wargaming's truth that they can never say themselves, and they will deny feverishly. But that is the truth of Wargaming as a company. The quote that they said exactly was somewhere in here.
I didn't see the quote. Sorry to cut you off. What? Because like I said, I came in halfway through this, so I don't know all the details. But I'll go back and watch the video if you don't want to explain it to me.
Yeah.
So
well, that's the thing, is it's a popular opinion that they get a lot, and they tell people to pound sand. The quote that we were talking about, Wargaming's business
I don't mean to
model,
have you backtrack. I mean, we can move on. And just I don't.
They said,
like I said, I'm trying to catch up a little bit more, so I know exactly what was said. And
I have screenshots of.
I just
all
more or less
stuff.
got the gist as they told you to pound sand. So
they basically go, oh, you don't know anything about free-to-play games, do you? And then they said exactly the words. This is like a senior moderator on Discord, Jai-Fo. Says, loyalty means little to free-to-play games. Churn and enjoyment is the business model. Basically like a kid's Happy Meal. So in other words, if you are a long-standing player, your feedback means nothing. If you're someone who's supported Wargaming financially throughout the years, your feedback means nothing. We want new customers. You can pound sand. But, there's a lot more to it, and I'd say the best thing to do would be rewatch the video just so I don't end up going over it twice in this. What games will take its place for me, Wits? I don't know, honestly. I mean, I have a lot of games that I do play, and I would like to get into streaming Battle Station Specific some. I think if you guys have not seen that game, and you see it, I think you'll definitely get an appreciation for it, and you'll like it, especially if you've never seen it.
You're good.
Know? And
fine.
even 10 years, 12 years later, however old that game is, it still holds up. It's still very fun gameplay. And I think, in fact, Ace, you said you have Battle Station Specific, don't you? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I do. Let me go back and I should have, actually. I think I have both Pacific and Midway, although I never really got into Midway. But I have, yeah, I've got Battle Station Pacific downloaded, and I mean, sure, it's definitely, I guess, a little bit more on the derpy side, like the distances and everything like that. But it's still, it's an arcade game. It uses shit. There's no like broken like.
It was actually planned.
They were all
like
built,
there were
or
solid
like,
plans
the
in place
was
for
actually
that.
realistic.
There were
like
solid plans. In
I know,
place for that
like
shit.
you can play the campaign. You can play the campaign.
That was a feasible
and
thing.
unlock ships for multiplayer, like the Yamato.
The Vladivostok.
I think the only,
never
I guess,
feasible at
more
all.
broken
The
ship is like
Soyuz
Super
was
Yamato,
laid
but
down.
that's still
There's a
more of
couple
like
that were
you gotta
laid
put the
down, so
campaign
that's
to get it.
kinda
Anyone can
feasible.
get it. Also, the
but the
Mustang
rest of the
Unit
Russian
back,
line
but
is just complete bullshit. It really is. And oh yeah, I can just imagine. And I will actually, as far as other games I can play, guys, leave some feedback in the comments. I am looking for new stuff. I'm constantly looking for new stuff. If you have something you want to see me play, let me know in the comments. I will play it.
You should see their World of Tanks lines.
But
oh yeah,
that's about it. That's all I have as far as feedback and thoughts on wargaming. That's my wargaming story. I'm a survivor, and yeah, stay strong. But I think I'm gonna leave you guys with that. That's what I seem to be getting from wargaming. That's where I think it seems to be coming out. And hopefully things get better, because I think there's foundations of a really fun game here. But
we are all
it's
survivors
just being
here.
criminally mismanaged. Criminally. And I think it's all a little too profit hungry. And I think that's where most of their problems are, is they're not concerned about what makes the game fun, which is going to lead to more growth, which leads to more profits and more staying power. But their business model seems to be find a niche player base, don't grow the niche player base, and milk the hell out of them for every dollar they have. So, and of course the crate drop rates and shit, like that is straight up gambling. You're dropping gambling in front of people's faces, which is its own thing. But yeah, yeah. Yeah.
For a game that's technically rated for below 18-year-olds.
The other thing I'd like to point out too is if you see how bad EA got freaking torched when Battlefield, the new Star Wars Battlefield came out with all the microtransactions.
Too, yeah.
Yeah, Battlefront. Sorry, not Battlefield. Battlefront. And seeing how torched the communities got, and eventually, like if you look at the new Battlefield, yeah, they had to.
Yeah.
Because of how bad the feedback was, it's like basically I can't do anything unless I pay you more money for a game that I already paid for. So, like, and eventually games like you see with this Battlefield.
I think their day is coming.
Eventually, when the community gets pissed
they're
off,
start to piss people off more and more. And I know for a
will
fact
take it in the
they're
pocketbook
slowly losing
hard.
Their players. Like several of my
and
friends,
EA
like
found
Clapper,
that out with Battlefield
you guys saw
5
him on the channel a lot when the channel first started.
So,
he doesn't play this game
Battlefront,
anymore.
Battlefield
He has
5,
stopped.
and then this.
He might
one,
come back for SAP to try it out. But again, he's largely stopped playing the game. A lot of the people I played Battle Stations with stopped playing the game. You know, didn't even make it through the lines. just because it's so much frustration. Amoeezy says that he spent $150 for Friesland with the boxes, and you see that is the problem. You know, that's $150 for a ship. For a ship. That's nuts. Yes, for a virtual ship that, you know, may or may not exist in 5 years. Probably won't exist in 5 years. Yeah, this isn't like a game that, you know, is going to be in your games library forever. Like Call of Duty Black Ops 2, you have that. You own that. As soon as they shut down the servers for this, it's done.
A virtual ship.
Gone. So, it's frustrating, man. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you guys for watching my channel. Again, I'm not done, but I will be taking a step back from this game in particular. You will still be seeing me a lot. And I think I'm going to be expanding my channels. I'm trying to get a motorcycle, and I think I'm going to get one maybe Tuesday. And I might start doing some motovlogging. I used to have a car YouTube channel that I started to get into, which I will keep it separate. It's going to be a separate YouTube channel. But I might post one for you guys just so you guys can see it, know what to expect with motovlogs. And obviously, it's just getting started. It's a whole different video type, so I need to learn to get good at that too. But, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you all. And I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday night. Happy Father's Day to any fathers in the chat. Have a good one.